Daughter abandoned me when I was battling cancer. 2 years later, she showed up thinking I was dead, expecting to inherit everything that I have. I, 56M, was diagnosed with colon cancer 7 months back. It was detected during my routine check, and gladly it was just at the initial stage. No matter how positive the doctors were, I was devastated. No one is happy dying. I came home and informed my daughter about it. She was traumatized just like me. I have no one in my life, except for my daughter, and likewise for her. She has no one but me. Her mother is alive but non-existent for both of us. I'm a single man, living with my 22-year-old daughter Hannah. My wife and I got separated amicably 14 years ago. We fell out of love and she moved to Atlanta with her boyfriend. I was left with the custody of my daughter, who was 8 back then. Hannah has been a difficult child. Our separation didn't go down well with her. She became resentful of her mother because she left her. She never spoke to her mother after that. She never took her call. I tried my best to fill that gap and raise her well, but I guess I faltered here. When I told Hannah about my cancer, her first reaction was pain and hurt. We cried and hugged and told how much we love each other. We talked about our happy times together, her school's graduation day, our yearly vacations, and hiking. She promised to support me and take care of me. Never thought she would get tired of me and abandon me, but here we are. After 7 months, she packs her bags and leaves me behind like a pile of garbage. I've been nothing but supportive to her for her whole life, and this is what I get in return. I do understand that it's tough for a young woman to take care of her ailing father. Well, she didn't have to clean my shit. I had a nurse taking care of those things. All I needed from my daughter was to be by my side. My doctor advised I should quit my job or shrink it down minimally because the treatment would take a lot of me, mentally and physically. I informed my manager about it. He was empathetic of my situation and released me. He said I can rejoin after fighting the deadly guest. I quit my job to focus full-time on my healing. Finance isn't a problem for me. I don't have any major responsibility. I have paid off my house mortgage long back. Daughter's education is done, how much she pursued. I have enough substantial savings to last for a few years. Then I have some assets that I can liquidate in case the cash dries out. So I'm in a good position to handle it financially. I was also quite positive about the treatment. My doctors were supportive. Hannah used to take me for the chemo and regular checkups. Chemo session was so painful and draining. I barely was able to move for a day or two after the session. I needed Hannah's help with the basic stuff like getting me food and meds. I got myself a wheelchair so that I could move around the house on my own during those weekdays. Yet, on some of the days, getting into the wheelchair also felt like a task. The treatment was wearing me down mentally as it was physically. I felt so weak that I felt my bones were about to blow out. It made me even more frustrated that I was struggling to do the basic tasks, like eating, walking, or using a loo. As the months went by, Hannah got cranky. She never stopped by my room. She stopped talking to me properly. Our conversation boiled down to one-word response from her. It was painful for me to see my daughter ignoring me. I have no one in life but her. Talking to her made me forget most of my pain, but when she turned hostile, nothing could be worse for me. I confronted her. I asked her if she considered me to be a burden. She bursts out and says yes. Nothing could be more heartbreaking than this. She said she was sick of taking care of me. I understand that making timely meals for me and taking care of my basic stuff could be overwhelming for us, and young people don't like to be around sick. So, I told her I would be hiring a nurse to take care of me. I asked the hospital to provide a house nurse for me, and they allotted a nurse who was experienced in taking care of cancer patients. I thought I had cracked a solution for my problem, but no. Hannah was still cranky. She continued her cold behavior. Not only she maintained distance from me but was also mean with the nurse. I asked the nurse to stay out of my daughter's way, but Hannah picked up on the nurse on trivial things. She even asked the nurse not to touch the refrigerator or even enter the kitchen because apparently, she was dirty by cleaning the patient's stool. Though Hannah never said anything on her face, after a while, it became evident to the nurse that Hannah didn't like her presence. The nurse asked me if I was satisfied with her work because it seems Hannah was not. I affirmed that she was performing her duties very well and I have no complaints. That day when the nurse left in the evening, I confronted Hannah about her behavior. Previously also, I had asked Hannah to stay out of my business and let the nurse do her work peacefully. But now water has breached its limit and my nurse was feeling the brunt. I had to intervene before she quit her job. When I mentioned to Hannah that she was mean to the nurse, she flipped out. She said I was unnecessarily blowing it out of proportion. She said, "She stinks of shit." I was trying to teach her some basic hygiene etiquette, and that bitch ran to you with tears. I lost my shit and yelled at her, "Goddamn, she's a nurse. She has been taught and trained about hygiene. She knows her shit more than you do. What the hell you think you are to give her hygiene lessons? School dropout, that's right." She screamed and ranted for a good 10 minutes about how I had made her life miserable. She held me responsible for why her mother abandoned her and why she couldn't have a normal childhood like others. This didn't hurt me much. I'm used to this kind of outburst from her. She had done this so many times. What was hurtful was her false allegations. She said, That nurse is a piece of crap who eats shit, looks and smell like shit. I know why you're protecting that whore. Has she made you her sugar daddy?" She went on to say that the nurse must have realized that I was a soft target to manipulate and get my wealth because I have no family to inherit my property. I cut her off in between, like what the hell? What kind of delusional being she is. Our argument got so worse that she stormed the door at my face and left. After an hour, I hear her yelling again from the living room and she's dragging her packed suitcases out of the house. She shouts, "I'm leaving the house for your good. This is what you wanted. Now you can do whatever you want with your mistress. Shower your every penny on that slut before you die, I don't care. Don't expect me to visit you when you're dying. I'm not gonna come." I wanted to stop her but her words broke my soul. Tears welled up in my eyes and I just sat near the window, sobbing and seeing her stuffing her suitcases in the tank and driving off. It's been weeks now since she has left. I feel worthless. I have failed as a father. Her words hurt me more than my illness. How could she allege that I was having a relationship with my nurse? How could she even think I would be wasting myself on the nurse? Feel like a failure. Failed at everything. Failed as a husband, failed as a father. Feel no motivation to continue my treatment. Edit 1, thanks for all the love and support. The post blew up unexpectedly. I was looking at this space as a sort of therapy to get rid of my miserable and lonely life. Everyone engaging in my post is very precious to me. Even the slightest ounce of love means a lot to me. So thanks all. Would like to add a brief background about Hannah. One good guy asked me here, why is my 22-year-old daughter living with me and did I took her for therapy in her early days? Dude, yes, I did everything to bring her emotions in check. Counseling, spending time with her, taking her out. In fact, I never got serious with any woman to avoid any turmoil in Hannah's life. Hannah didn't take our separation well. She got aggressive. I took her to therapy and it helped her to an extent, but her aggression often relapsed. She dropped out of college. I tried hard to convince her to continue but she didn't. She said she wanted to do something of her own, start a salon. I funded her spa salon. There she met a guy whom she claimed to be the love of her life. She wanted to marry him after dating for less than a year. She was barely 19 then. I advised her to spend more time before making any move, but yeah, as usual, she did what she wanted. Her marriage didn't last even a year. She shifted back with me. The guy she married was a loser. He had no job. He lived on her salon income, and when they ate up all the investment off the salon, they had to sell it. He left her shortly after that. She didn't get any alimony whatsoever. The guy was broke. So ultimately she was left with no income and no husband. I had to have her back. She has been living with me, on my income. Now when I'm dying, who knows, she abandoned me like a pile of garbage. Update 1, hey friends, I know I took months to update. Thanks for checking on me. Just so happy to connect with so many of you on DM. Never thought that this space would give me some genuine friends. This month I had my last chemo session. I have been declared cancer-free. I can't thank the medical facilities enough for the impeccable treatment they have provided. After that clash with my daughter, things got so worse that my recovery halted if not deteriorated. My doctor got concerned and recommended I seek a counselor to help me cope the distress. It helped. It really did. The first session with the counselor was nothing but me bawling my lungs out. It was such a relief talking to someone after a long time. I even told her that I don't want to continue my treatment and let myself succumb to the disease, but the counselor helped me cope with my depression and hopelessness. I was even asked to have a full-time nurse because I was living alone and was growing weak. If any emergency occurs at odd hours, I should have someone to take care of me. I offered double pay to my existing caregiver to accommodate me full-time because she knew my medical history and my diagnosis, so I didn't want to replace her. Had Hannah been here, she would have picked up on me for having the nurse full-time. It disgusts me to think how she accused me of something which I could have never thought about. Anyway, I have moved past my daughter. If she can abandon me at my lowest, I shouldn't be thinking about her either. With the support from my doctors, counselor, and nurse, I focused on my healing. My nurse used to take me for chemo and I realized that more than physical, I used to get mentally drained earlier. When Hannah used to accompany me, she was constantly throwing tantrums at me, which worried me more than the physical exhaustion I was going through. In the process of my treatment, I lost my hair, lost my weight, but I was still positive and determined to overcome it. Guilty of saying this, but I think Hannah moving out proved a positive thing for me. With time, I felt the negativity moving out of my life. I couldn't feel more relieved. I was holding on to her until now. Made her my sole purpose in life. Gave up my happiness for hers, but by moving out she taught me a lesson. A bitter lesson that I shouldn't have overdone my duties, my love, my care. Shouldn't have let her exploit me and walk over me. She made me a punching bag and I just stood there and took it. Not anymore. Ah, such a relief. I'm looking forward to rebuilding my life. Earlier I thought of going back to work, but now I think I don't need to. I have decent savings to make the ends meet. If at all I see running out of money, I'll take up some basic job at a supermarket or so. But right now, I'm focusing on getting my weight back and strengthening my muscles. Started with walks, and would soon jog and run after the breathlessness subsides. It's not easy. I still drain out after doing the basic chores, but I'm taking it one at a time. My nurse is still here, but I would be letting her go once I regain some strength to be able to take care of my shit. Update 2. It's been 2 years since I was declared cancer-free. These 2 years I spent doing what I really enjoyed. Realized I never enjoyed my life. Worked hard all my life to give a good lifestyle to my daughter. On my time off from work, I spent it on my daughter to fill her mother's gap. To avoid getting into any serious relationship, I ghosted a lot of women and then went into guilt trip avoiding them. Eventually, I stopped dating at all. I did all these to protect my daughter. It all seemed futile. After she had grown up and I had time by myself, I didn't utilize that. TBH, I was still worried that it wouldn't go well with Hannah. She had always lived with me, except for the 10 months of her marriage, and I knew she couldn't stand the presence of another woman in the house. After going cancer-free, I started dating. Initially, very awkward. Funny part, I realized the syllabus of the dating game has changed a lot. Gosh, today's woman uses such lingos and jargon, I had to use Google Dictionary in the mid of conversation, lol. After meeting about half a dozen women through this dating app, I found someone with whom I could vibe. No, I didn't have sex with 6 women. Just went out for dinner and coffee. With this woman, calling her Syra, she's in her early 50s. She got cheated by her husband several times. She gave him many chances to mend his ways for the sake of her daughter, but he didn't. She eventually moved out and raised her daughter as a single mom. Now that her daughter has moved out for her college, Syra is trying her luck. Also, it was her daughter who insisted she seek a partner. Hearing her go gaga about her daughter, I sometimes feel jealous, not in a bad way. I mean, what did I do wrong that my daughter never reciprocated my love? Anyway, after seeing her for 6 to 7 months, we decided to move in together. Did we take it too fast? I don't think so. I'm able to hit 60, don't think I have more than couple of decades before I'm laid inside a coffin, lol. We had an option that she could move in with me, but Syra was more inclined that I move in with her. She has artistic taste and she has aesthetically designed every bit of her house on her own. Who wants to leave her craft for a house which has been on the verge of falling apart? I wasn't able to have proper maintenance of the house, forget about the aesthetics. Also, I don't have very fond memories of the house which I would want to hold on to. I needed a change of scenery too. So, I sold out my house. Haha, yes, I sold it. More cash money for me to retire lavishly. Why would I not? Why should I leave it for Hannah, who left me alone to die? But all this happened months ago, why am I updating now? Because last week I saw a ghost. Rather, my daughter met a ghost. I was chilling with Syra when I got a call from Andy, the new owner of my house. He was furious. He said that a woman had trespassed on their house and created a chaos. She even got into a scuffle with Andy's girlfriend. As per Andy's information, a young woman sneaked into the house premises and tried to enter the house. Apparently, she had a house key, but it didn't work. When she was unable to unlock the house, she started banging the door profusely. Andy's girlfriend opened the door, yelling at that woman for hammering on the door. In return, the woman also abused Andy's girlfriend, calling her a whore who let a dying man F her to get the house. Andy's girlfriend got confused and said there was some misunderstanding, but the woman didn't listen and yelled at the top of her voice, calling her names, and asking her to vacate the house as it belonged to her dad, who died 2 years ago. Andy's girlfriend clarified that Andy had bought the house and no one had given her the house. She didn't know my name as they were not dating when Andy bought the house from me. Andy wasn't home to clarify the matter. His girlfriend called him in panic, but by then the woman had left, threatening to come back with her friends the next day. The way Andy described the woman, I knew she was Hannah. Andy asked me if I knew the woman. I meekly said she was my daughter, knowing that he would get mad at me. And he did. He freaked out. He asked me to come over the next day and sort out the matter, else he would call the cops on her. I told him to call the cops and get the restraining order, but later I realized that this was my shit and it was my responsibility to deal with her and not let them suffer. I showed up the next day and waited for her. She arrived with 2 of her rookie friends. She yelled from the front porch and broke the flower pots kept on the porch. And he opened the door with a baseball stick to scare them. I asked him not to, but he's a baseball coach. How could I stop him from showing off his skills? He stepped out, and before Hannah and her friends could charge at him, I stepped out. Hannah froze. Her friends also stopped, seeing her getting numb. She muttered with a blank expression, "You're alive. Thought you were dead. What happened to your cancer?" That was an unmissable expression. I would have given that house for free to someone to see that murky expression on Hannah's face. It turned pale. She pointed towards Andy and his girlfriend and asked who were they. I said they were the owner of the house. I have sold it to them. She had the audacity to ask, "What did you do with that money? Ain't you gonna die?" Though it was a hurtful statement, but it didn't hurt me anymore. Instead, I cracked up on her face. "I don't need to tell you, but here you go. That money I'm gonna use for the rest of my life. That's right, I'm cancer-free now. Before you ask anything, let me tell you, you get nothing from me. I have left my job. Whatever money I have, I'm gonna spend it on myself until the last penny. You're on your own. Think that your dad is dead like you have been thinking until now. She was in tears. She told her friends to leave, saying it was now the matter between dad and her. Meanwhile, I told Andy that I would be leaving, and in case anyone creates any further ruckus, he should call the cops and get the restraining order against her. Saying that I left. Hannah ran behind me, pleading, "Dad, don't do this to me, I'm your daughter, your only family, you can't abandon me like this." I smirked and said, "Sure, I can abandon you, the same way you did." I sat inside my car and drove off. Usually in this kind of situation, I feel remorseful and sad, but that day I feel lighter, satisfied, and somewhat happy. I think I did the right thing. Should have taught her the lesson long back. Thanks for putting up with me. I appreciate all the comments and well wishes I get on this thread. Hope no one goes through the turmoil I went through. Loads of love from me. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Discovered that my wife cheated on me and left for a rich man, but now it turns out that he's been married. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship when I, 34 male, met my wife, 35 female. It hadn't been a traumatic breakup. The two of us were just growing apart and wanted different things out of life, so we decided it was better to break up. A few months after that breakup, I bumped into a woman who introduced herself as Katie. We just started talking in a coffee shop and hit it off. When we exchanged numbers, I did warn her that I had just gotten out of a serious relationship, which meant I wasn't ready for anything serious or anything at all. She waited until I was ready, which was pretty amazing for me. I thought that a woman willing to wait for me must have interested me, right? It ended up not being the case, but at the time it truly did seem like I found someone good for me. We took it slow, and within a year and a half, the two of us were moving in together. After another 6 months, I proposed and we were planning a wedding. The wedding went off without a hitch. The two of us were financially stable at the time of our wedding. I had a decent job and so did my wife. While we might not have been as rich as the 1%, the two of us could be considered middle class at the very least. Our relationship was also good. We had our ups and downs, but the two of us truly did seem to be creating a great life together. For the first 3 years, everything seemed great until my wife started working on a particular project at work that was difficult, or this was what I thought of at the time. She was working long hours and just spending a lot of time out of the house. I missed her, but I understood that she was busy at work. When I had an important project at work, she supported me. I kept asking when she would be finished, but my wife kept extending the deadline. This has been going on for nearly 6 months now. It made no sense why she would still be spending all these late nights at work. It got to the point where I couldn't deny that something wasn't right there, so I went onto her laptop that she had brought home from work. Her home laptop didn't have anything I already checked. This meant the evidence had to be there. I didn't know what evidence I was looking for, but I knew there had to be something on her laptop that would explain to me what was going on. On her laptop, I found several emails from an email account I didn't even know she had. On this email were dozens of emails that were shared between this unknown man. They were all of a romantic or sexual nature, which only confirmed the truth that I was afraid to admit to myself. She was cheating on me. When she came back home from picking up dinner for us, I had the laptop out in the open with the emails right there so she could see that I knew everything. My wife didn't say anything at first. She looked like she was in shock, so I took the chance to ask her who was the guy she was cheating with. My wife screamed, saying I had no right to go into her work laptop because that contained confidential information. I almost wanted to laugh because she had been the one to use her work laptop to talk with this guy. So, I asked again. He was a former client of the office that she had continued speaking to even after the contract ended. One thing led to another and they started sleeping together. I asked if she had feelings for him. She said yes. My wife said she was going to eventually tell me that she wanted a divorce so she could move on and be with this man. Once I did a little digging, I discovered this man was very rich. When I say rich, I mean filthy stinking rich. She always loved the finer things in life but seemed like she wanted to work towards it. I couldn't understand the shift in her personality. Maybe it had always been there and I was so blinded by my love for her that I just wasn't able to see it. Whatever the reason, I knew this marriage was over. My wife fought it for a bit, but I think she was only doing this because she felt like it was what she had to do. The divorce seemed to take a long time to come to fruition, but in reality, it was just a matter of months. She went one way and I went another. A divorce never was on my radar. Yet here I was newly divorced and alone. My ex-wife already had someone in mind. She posted on social media that she was with a new man and they were engaged to be married. The truth of it was that her so-called fiancé was already married. He told her he was a widow but his wife wasn't dead. Rather, she was just in another country taking care of an ailing family member. When she returned, everything hit the fan, so to speak. My ex-wife's engagement was called off, but this was a moot point given that her app was already married. They couldn't get married anyway. After that, her social media posts seemed to become quite erratic. She was posting about how she had lost her soulmate, but what I think she was upset at losing was her wealthy app. It was all about the money. This guy was going to help her get to that lifestyle much faster. Meanwhile, after my divorce, I reconnected with the girl from the past whom I had originally cut things off with just before meeting Katie. The two of us were friends for a while before we realized that we were finally in a place where we could give this a second try. She knew about my divorce and was sympathetic. When word got back to my ex that I was back with this particular woman, she went ballistic and started blasting me all over social media. She spent so much time blasting me and her app over all her social media that her job started to become in jeopardy from what I heard. My wife was put on probation at her place of work. They were a public company, so things she could post could be used against them in some way. I just chose to shut down my social media for the time being because reading her posts was doing nothing but causing stress for me. As far as I know, she has been moved to another department and isn't making as much money as she once was. This is all on my ex. If she had just been happy for what she had, then all of that could have been prevented. My current girlfriend and I are talking about marriage but are trying to take it very slow right now. The last thing I want to do is run into anything without being completely sure. Don't want to make the same mistake twice.